Deputy President David Mabuza has described King Goodwill Zwelithini Kabheka Zulu as a torchbearer, leading the South African nation and the people of KwaZulu-Natal out of the grip of HIV, AIDS and TB. So exactly what role did the King play in issues of health? Let's find out. Dr. Sibongiseni Dlomo joins us now live. He is the chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Health and also a former health MEC in KwaZulu-Natal. Dr. Dlomo, always a pleasure having you on the program. Welcome.
Good morning, Shane. Good morning to SABC viewers.
All right, let's just talk about your work in KwaZulu-Natal and your experience with the King. In terms of health, how would you define the impact of the King's work in changing the lives of people?
Taking it from your words, the King made a very pronounced announcement on the 5th of December 2009, where he said, among other things, we are going to revive the male circumcision in the country. We would revive it to be done medically. My great-grandfather, King Shaka, actually stopped this custom because they were fighting wars of resistance and they did not want men not to be readily available to go into those wars. However, the King is saying, now there's a new war, HIV and AIDS, and I am told by scientists that if men are circumcised, they reduce the infection from one person to the other by over 50%. If this new war demands that we now go into this program, I now charge you, government, to do it, but I want you to do it medically. No person should die of this program. So the history is now in 2018, after periodically reporting to the King, we made a mark of 1 million men circumcised in KwaZulu-Natal without a single death, thanks to the leadership of His Majesty, all the traditional leaders, faith-based leaders, and the Premier at that time, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, who led me to do this work in that way.
Knowing the stance that King Shaka took back in the 19th century and the stance that the King of present took with regards to circumcision, how was that received by the people of KwaZulu-Natal?
A decision taken by King Shaka could only be amended or reviewed by another king, and that is why we're so delighted. Amakhosi supported this because in Zulu we say a king is umlomo ongathethi manga. Once the king has spoken, no other person will take that word lightly. So it was so well received, and we are glad it went that way, because if it was pronounced by any political leader, anybody would have been tempted not to listen to this instruction. But because it was done by the King, it went so wide in the whole area, and I can actually confirm without fear of contradicting myself that the impact of reduction of HIV and AIDS, even in maternal deaths, in terms of the prevalence of HIV, the incidence of HIV in the province of KwaZulu-Natal was reduced significantly, among other things, by the contribution of His Majesty.
We heard the Deputy President, David Mabuza, describing King Goodwill Zwelithini Kabheka Zulu as a torchbearer, leading the South African nation out of the grip of HIV and AIDS, and as well as TB, which he says has given meaning to the work of the South African National AIDS Council. You'll agree?
Absolutely. In fact, we received there was a meeting by Mr. Michel Sedibe from the UNAIDS, coming in all the way from United Nations to come specifically to thank His Majesty for the role that he played in championing this fight against HIV and AIDS. Among other things was this issue of male medical circumcision. But the King did not end there. He was always there, available to lead with us, leading us from the front, going around, immunizing babies, talking about pregnant mothers that must be cared for, talking about getting food into children so that we can reduce the infant mortality, the child mortality. So he was actually embracing the social programs of government so much. The issues of health, education, and social development were championing by the king. We were supporting and being led by the king, coming in from the front. We were supported so much by the king in his programs.
Let's just talk a bit more with regards to health education. Umkosi Umhlanga, people better know it better as the reed dance, and the part that health education played in that ceremony. Tell us more.
It was very educational, not only to the young maidens who went into that program, but to all of us. It was a wake-up call. And it challenged so much some of us to say, if we then have our king championing this program of virginity amongst the young maidens, why should we expose these young maidens at the adulthood to men who have not looked after themselves well? Therefore, it really propelled us to do this program of male medical circumcision with lessons for young men.
Dr. Dhlomo, what about addressing social issues such as gender-based violence and promoting religious tolerance? Your work with the king over the years, what have you observed with regards to these issues?
The king despised men who actually violated the rights of women. And that's why he was coming in very strongly in all those Umkhosomhlanga ceremonies, where he would say, these are the flowers of the nation, meaning these young girls. No man should then come in and mess up with these young girls. In fact, I charge you, young men, to be so well behaved, to be responsible. And actually, when you come to a relationship situation with these young maidens, remember that they've looked after themselves so well. So he was actually those.
Yeah. I think we lost Dr. Dhlomo again, but we got the gist with regards to the role that the king played in terms of health issues. Dr. Sibongiseni Dhlomo, the chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Health and also a former health MEC in KwaZulu-Natal.